Let's play our login map to test it. And here we are, logged in as device ID. As you can see, device ID has no nickname. Let's try account portal now. It works as it should. And lastly, let's try persistent authentication. It logged us in with the last used account. Now let's fix our game instance initialization logic so that it doesn't start when we eventually want to play test other levels. Let's create a player controller for our login game mode and name it BP_login controller. Now we move the login widget logic to our login controller. We need to fix some things in our logic since we are now inside the player controller class and don't need to get the player controller. To show the mouse cursor, we can simply find it in all actions as a native variable. For the input mode controller, we can just add self for the player controller. Compile, save, and play the menu map. Now the login widget won't appear if we start playing from the menu map. Also, there won't be a login widget in the login map because we didn't set the controller for the login map to be our login controller. We can do this directly in the world settings for this level. Set it to the login controller, and we're back to where we started. The login button still functions as it should. We don't need the init event, so we can delete it. Now you might be wondering how to make it so that we would need to log in again if we already did it before. For that, we need to use the persistent authentication login method. This method will use the account portal login token if there is one and use it to log in to the account. Disconnect and move the portal login logic. When the login button is pressed, we first use the persistent authentication login method. Let's reuse our print string node for the user ID. On failure, we will handle our logic for the portal login and also print the error message from the persistent authentication node. On success, we will also open the menu level. Copy the open level node and connect it after the print string node. Let's test it by playing the login map. And nothing happens because our logic is tied to the button click in our login widget. Go to login widget. We can simply copy the button logic for the event construct event so that when the widget is created, it will automatically start the login to EOS logic. Let's search for the construct event. Select the event construct node. This is the same as the init event in the game instance or the begin play event in the controller. We can simply copy the button logic for the event construct event so that when the widget is created, it will automatically start the login to EOS logic. And here we are, automatically logged in with persistent authentication. Let's add a small delay before the auto login to allow our level to perform camera transitions. Also, let's remove our login button from view so that the client won't have the ability to click it. To do that, we can use a button variable and set its visibility to be collapsed instead of hidden. Collapsed ensures that the button is not drawn using resources. Use collapsed visibility. The button still appeared for a second because we made it not visible to the player in the construction after the delay. Let's move the set visibility node in front of the delay. Now at the start of the game, we are greeted with our project name, and if we have logged in before, we get automatically logged in. In game instance, we have some reworking to do. First, if you notice that the login using EIK has a similar logic structure, it's a good indication that it's a macro time. Select the login using EIK node, both print string nodes, and the open level node. Right-click on any of them and select Collapse to Macro. Name it login using EIK. Let's open that macro to edit it to fit our needs. Drag the login method to the inputs so that we can select the login method. Rename the then pin in the outputs to onFail. Drag the onSuccess pin to the outputs node so that we can have a pin created for success. Reconnect the onSuccess to the printString node. I deleted the open-level node, but you should not. That was a mistake in my logic. Rearrange the onFail and onSuccess pins. To do so, first compile. Now we have our own little macro for the login logic. Set the persistent authentication for our login method in our first macro. We can delete the rest of the logic and use our own macro again to log in using the portal if persistent authentication fails. If you did not delete the open level node inside the macro, you don't need to open the level in this part of the logic I'm doing. Now, this is where I went wrong in the path of the login logic when the persistent login fails and the client then sees the portal login. Let's say the client presses the wrong button and the login window disappears, or there's an internet lag or some issue with EOS. For that, we need the login widget to show the login button so that the client can try to log in again. So, we need to make the login button appear if the portal login fails. As my Unreal Engine crashed and I had time to rethink our approach to the login logic, I checked my other projects to see what methods I used. So, let's move the widget creation to the game instance because then we won't need to go through hoops to make the widget do what we want. Cut the widget creation out of the controller and move it to the game instance event. Place it at the beginning of the event. Create a login widget variable by dragging of create widget node return value and promoting it to a variable. I rushed to create a branch and promoted its condition to a variable, naming it usePersistent. We will use this condition later to show our debug login screen with login options for development. Connect true with our login logic. For false, we need the mouse cursor to be visible as we want to be able to see it. To do so, search for player controller and add show mouse cursor variable setting. Set it to true. I'm bringing the open level node to the macro. If you followed the previous video and did not remove the open level from the macro, then you will have it there. Let's promote product user ID to a variable. We might need it at later stages. And we will modify our print string to print more data. Drag off in string and search for the append node. This node will let us format the string we want to print. Drag off the login method and search for the enum to string node. Connect it to the B field, and in an A string field type login method, add colon and space. Click Add Pin. In the C field, hold Shift and press Enter to make the next line its own paragraph, and type player's nickname add colon with space. Add another pin, drag off it, and search for Get Player's Nickname and choose the green function. Add another pin, hold Shift and press Enter, and type PUID with colon and space. Add one more pin and drag the product user ID to it. Now we have some prints for the development build. If you copied just like me, you will get the same error when trying to compile because self now refers to the game instance instead of the controller. We need to remove it. Drag off owning player and search for player controller. Now in the player controller, we can delete the remaining leftover code, and in the begin play event, we will call the game instance event to log in to EOS. Let's play our login level. We get an error of an infinite loop. We are true geniuses of our craft. It took me a bit to find what the issue was. I found it. We are also calling login to EOS in our widget on its creation. Let's delete it so that we won't have a loop error. Great. No error. Now for what I originally intended to do. Create a custom event inside the login widget and name it Show Retry button. Do a lazy copy of our login button visibility setting and change it to be visible. In the widget designer, rename login to retry login in all caps. This font seems better in all caps. Now, in the game instance, we can add the login widget, drag off it, and look for our Show Retry button event. Connect it to the onFail from the Account Portal login node. Now we need to test it. Drag off the branch true pin to the portal login to skip the persistent auth node. Let's play our login level. Now we can log in using the portal. But let's pretend we fat-fingered and cancel the login attempt. And here we have the error printed, and our retry login button appears as intended. And if we click it, we can try to log in again. Now we won't fat-finger our login. All good. It all works. Now reconnect the on-branch true pin to the persistent authentication macro. Now let's create in Blueprints folder a menu controller for the menu game mode. Name it BP_menu controller. And add it to the menu game mode. Compile and save. Let's create a debug login for our game. I will add our previously created common border to our login widget. Set border alignments to be fill. Make sure the button hierarchy is on top of the border. Make the border a variable and drag it to the graph. Set border default visibility and details as collapsed. In the construct event, drag off the last node and add a delay node with a duration of 3 seconds. Drag off the common border and set its visibility to non-hit testable self only. Add a vertical box to the overlay and make it center aligned. Drag horizontal box to vertical box. Add combo box string to horizontal box. I made a mistake by dragging the combo box key instead of the combo box string. You make sure to add right combo box string. Search and drag our common button to the same horizontal box. Name the button login. To resize our button, right-click on it and look for Wrap with Size box. Override the width and height of the size box to be 250 respectively. Now we have a smaller login button. Select the vertical box and make it a variable. We want to be able to show and hide it as needed. You can rename it to login methods. Remove the node to make the button collapsed. Let's set it as the default state of the button in its details. In the Details panel, look for the Behavior tab and set the visibility to collapsed. Reconnect the construct nodes. Create a variable named login map of type string. Set its container type to be a map. For the map value, search for elogin type enum. Now we can use this variable to search for login types with a string key. I noticed that I used the wrong combo box. Now we should be on the right track. Mistakes happen. No shame in it. Select Combo Box String and in Detail look and click on Selection Change to add to the graph. Use the selected item from the event on Selection Changed as the key for the login map. Promote the found item to a variable and name it login method. Connect it to the event node. Select the login map variable and add the values for the login methods we want to use. We definitely want to use the account portal, so set the key to account portal. Let's create another one for persistent authentication and name it accordingly. For the last one, we will use device ID and set the key to the same string value. For now, it looks good. These methods will work by themselves, but others will need further configuration. Add a pre-construct event to the graph. Add and drag out from the combo box string. Search for Add option. This will add selectable options for our selection box. Copy and paste 2 more for our selections. From the combo box string, also drag out and add a set selected option node. In the option value, write device ID. Copy the values from our login map and add them as string names for our keys. Sometimes Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V can be hard for a fella. I made some mistakes while recording this part, but I'll try not to make them later on. Don't forget to connect the combo box string to the add option nodes that I skipped in recording. Make sure combo box set as target for each add options node. And now our combo box is working. Now let's make our login button function. Add an on-clicked event from the login button details. Add login method variable to the graph. Add a Boolean variable to the login widget named Show Login Methods. Drag it to the graph and make a branch based on this Boolean. If it is true, we will add options to our combo box. Also, drag the login method box, if you named it the same, and set its visibility to non-hit testable self only. Add it to true branch and reconnect nodes. In the Show Login Methods variable details, set it to be exposed on spawn and compile the login blueprint. Now, in the game instance, right-click on the Create Widget node and select Refresh Nodes. Now we have our Show Login Methods variable exposed as a widget setting. Set the usePersistent Boolean as its value and set the default value to false. Drag from the usePersistent variable and search for the not Boolean function. Connect it to the widget Show Login Methods node. The not Boolean function will reverse the value of usePersistent. If we use persistent, no box with login methods will appear, and if we don't use it, it will. Let's test it. For now, it seems good. But for debug mode, I like to print the selected option, so let's do it. Drag off the selected item and add a print string node. Now we can see the active selection and that it works. Now let's make our button function. As the login method needs to be sent to the game instance, we need to create a new interface function. Navigate to our game instance interface and add a new function. Name it login using selected method. For this function, we will need an input to pass our login method. In the function details, add an input and change its type to elogin type. Name it login method. Compile and save. In the game instance, double-click on our newly created interface. Drag our created macro and connect to interface event. Connect the login method with the macro login method, and we're done. This macro contains all our login logic. So nice. In the Login widget, search for the game instance and call our interface event to login using the selected method. Connected to our button, connect the login method variable with the interface call, and everything should work. Let's play our login map to test it. And here we are, logged in as device ID. As you can see, device ID has no nickname. Let's try account portal now. It works as it should. And lastly, let's try persistent authentication. It logged us in with the last used account. And now, if we set use persistent to true, we still see our box for login methods, as we didn't set its default value to be collapsed. In Login Widget Designer, select Login button and set its visibility to be collapsed. Now, after fixing it, everything works as intended. Great! Now we can call ourselves developers. That's it for this video. In the next one, we will build our main menu and create lobby functionality. Thanks for watching.